There is a kind of silence that doesn't arrive like comfort, but like a stranger standing at your door. You open it, carefully, and it enters, uninvited, yet familiar somehow. You don't know what to say to it. So, you don't. You just listen, to the sound of nothing. It's strange, isn't it? How long we chase peace, how fiercely we crave it. And yet, when it finally comes, we flinch. Because peace, true peace, is not the kind that soothes you instantly. It's the kind that reveals what noise was hiding. For years, you filled your days with movement, conversations, ambitions, distractions. Every hour a sound, a purpose, a pulse. And you think, this is life. This is how it should feel. But when it all quiets, when there's finally space to breathe, you notice how uneasy that breathing feels, as if silence were pressing against your ribs, asking questions you don't know how to answer. You look around your room, the same walls, the same furniture, but everything looks different. The air feels heavier. The time moves slower. You realize how addicted you were to being occupied, to being pulled, to being somewhere, anywhere, but here. Peace doesn't feel peaceful at first because it doesn't match what you've learned to call life. It's not excitement. It's not validation. It's not applause. It's just stillness. And that stillness feels foreign, like returning to a childhood home after everyone has gone. There's warmth in it, but also an ache. Because peace is not the arrival of something new. It's the quiet after everything unnecessary has gone. And that quiet shows you what remains. It shows you how much noise you built just to avoid hearing yourself. It shows you how many dreams were born not from longing, but from fear of being still. That's why most people can't stay in peace for long. They say they want it, but when it comes, they run. Back to chaos, back to noise, back to the comfort of confusion. Because at least confusion feels familiar. Peace doesn't. Peace feels like standing in front of a mirror and seeing yourself without a role, without a label, without the sound of becoming, just being. And that's the hardest thing to face. Not the world, not the past, but yourself, when there's finally no one left to perform for. You sit in silence long enough, and the mind begins to show you everything you tried to bury under movement. Old regrets, unfinished grief, unspoken truths. They rise like dust in sunlight, soft, gentle, but impossible to ignore. This is why peace feels so strange. It's not because it's empty. It's because it's honest. It's the first time in years that life stops pretending. And so do you. Peace has a peculiar way of turning into a mirror. Not the kind that flatters, but the kind that reflects everything. Clearly, without mercy, without disguise. When the noise fades, there's nowhere left to hide. No conversations to fill the silence, no tasks to drown the thoughts. Just you, and the echo of what you've carried. You start to notice things, how tired your soul feels, not from labor, but from pretending. How every "I'm fine" was really a soft cry for space. And in that noticing, a quiet truth begins to unfold. Peace is not something you find. It's what's been waiting beneath the noise all along. But to reach it, you must first meet the unease it brings. Because before peace heals you, it will confront you. It will ask you to see what your chaos was hiding, the unresolved wounds, the silent fears, the loneliness that no one could touch. You might feel it in your body, the tension that never left your shoulders, the shallow breaths you forgot to deepen. You might feel it in your thoughts, the looping questions, the memories that resurface uninvited. And for a while, you'll think something's wrong. You'll think, this isn't peace, this is pain. But that's the paradox. Real peace begins with discomfort. It strips away what's false so gently, yet so completely, that you confuse the loss of weight with the loss of self. You sit by the fire and you feel that quiet ache, not loud, not sharp, but deep, ancient, familiar. It's the ache of returning to your own depth. Most people mistake that feeling for loneliness, but it's not loneliness, it's reintroduction. You're meeting yourself again after years of running. That's what makes peace feel so unfamiliar. You've lived so long outside of yourself that home feels foreign. You walk through your inner rooms and everything looks different, because you are different now. Peace doesn't come with applause. It doesn't announce, "You've healed." It just sits quietly, waiting for you to stop searching. At first, you'll resist it. You'll reach for your phone, for music, for distraction, anything to fill the stillness. But each attempt will feel hollow. Because once you've glimpsed true quiet, nothing else satisfies. And then, something begins to shift. You start to hear subtler sounds, the rain against the window, the hum of your breath, the rhythm of your heartbeat. You realize these were always here. You were just too loud to notice. It's humbling to see how much of life you've been missing simply because you were never still enough to listen. And yet, this humility brings peace closer. Because peace doesn't come to those who chase it. It comes to those who surrender. You start to understand that maybe peace was never meant to feel like pleasure. Maybe it's meant to feel like truth. And truth rarely arrives without trembling. There's a beauty in that trembling, though, because it means you're waking up. Not into excitement, not into achievement, but into awareness. And that's the kind of awakening that doesn't shout, it whispers. It says, "Be still. You've been searching long enough. Now, come home." There is a kind of quiet that doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't promise peace or clarity or even warmth. It just exists, like a field after the harvest, like a room after a long conversation, like the air after tears. Most people don't stay long enough to feel it, because peace, real peace, feels empty at first, too simple, too still, too naked. You start to miss the noise, the familiar rhythm of worry, the steady hum of striving. Even suffering has its comfort, doesn't it? Pain gives you something to hold. Anger gives you a pulse, a direction. But peace just leaves you with yourself. And that's the part no one warns you about. That the path to calm is not lined with flowers, but with echoes. Echoes of who you were. Echoes of all the selves you've been performing for the world. You begin to notice how much of your life was built on motion. You were always reaching for approval, for love, for certainty, for that next little moment that promised to complete you. And when the reaching stops, there's an ache, a phantom limb of identity. You think something is missing, but nothing is missing. It's just that what remains is you, unperformed, unpolished, bare as the day you were born. And that can feel unbearable. It's strange how silence can sound so loud when you've spent your life drowning in noise. How stillness can feel violent when your soul has only known motion. Peace is not gentle when it first arrives. It breaks things. It exposes how fragile your comforts were. You start to see how much of your self was never truly yours. Borrowed words, borrowed opinions, borrowed dreams. Even your sadness had a script, a rhythm that made it familiar. And now, sitting here, as the rain writes its long, patient story against the window, you start to feel almost transparent. The world doesn't press on you anymore. It just is. And you just are. No goal, no next step, no healing to chase. Just this moment, as it breathes. This is where many turn back. They think peace has betrayed them, that it should feel more alive, more comforting. But peace isn't comfort. It's clarity. And clarity has no mercy. It doesn't soothe you. It strips you. It removes the ornaments, the noise, the storylines, until there is only you and what you've been avoiding all along. You might find a certain sadness there, a soft grief for all the years you spent running, for all the noise you mistook for meaning, for all the versions of yourself you created just to be seen, just to be safe. But beneath that grief, something ancient begins to stir, something unhurried, a kind of peace that isn't about feeling good, but about being real. You notice how time slows down, how even the fire seems to breathe with you, how the world outside the window doesn't demand your attention. It just moves, softly, without needing to be noticed. And then it hits you. Peace was never a reward. It was a return to something you never truly lost, only forgot. The child who once stared at raindrops without naming them, without needing them to mean anything. The man who once sat quietly beside his own thoughts and didn't try to fix them. You start to remember what it means to be again, without purpose, without effort, without story. And maybe that's why peace feels unfamiliar at first. Because it isn't something new. It's something ancient returning to you. Something that has been waiting, patiently, under all the movement, under all the noise. And when you finally stop resisting it, when you let it in, you realize peace doesn't ask you to change. It asks you to stop pretending, to stop performing, to stop negotiating with the world for permission to exist, to stop trying to be someone who deserves rest. It asks you to simply be, to trust that being is enough. And that's the hardest part for most men. To believe that nothing left to fix doesn't mean nothing left to live for. To accept that the stillness you feared was never emptiness. It was spaciousness. You just didn't know how to breathe in it yet.